to a special edition of Discussion with the Writer Fred right here at Black Video Network in San Antonio, Texas. I said special edition because we really have a very special person here with us today. Ms. Jessica Cisneros, who's running for Congress in the 28th District here in San Antonio. And she has made news all over the world. She said everything. So we're happy that you could, out of your busy schedule, you could find a little time to come with us.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to be here, and thank you so much again for the invitation.
Oh, definitely. So why don't you tell our viewers something about Jessica Cisneros?
Absolutely. So my name is Jessica Cisneros. I was born and raised in Laredo, Texas, which is part of our district, Texas 28th, which runs from Guadalupe County through part of Bexar County, all the way down to Laredo, and then down to the Rio Grande Valley. So it's one of those beautifully gerrymandered districts, I guess you can call it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I decided to run for Congress. I'm an immigration human rights attorney, and I decided to go into advocacy work because, you know, growing up, I saw how much my parents and my neighbors, my, you know, classmates' families, like there were so many people that worked really hard to make ends meet, and it just seemed like opportunities just became harder and harder and harder. And you know, my neighborhood of Sal Si Puedes in Laredo, unfortunately, a story like mine and my sister, who's a doctor.
Oh, really?
She is.
Oh,
my parents started off as farm workers, but despite all the talent and potential that we have in our communities, a story like mine is very much the exception and not the rule. And I decided to step up and run because, well, actually, I became an immigration attorney during the Trump administration. By then, I already had several years of immigration advocacy. So when you talk about an underdog challenge, I kind of understand and know what that is like. But I decided to go into that work because I knew that, you know, there's so much work to be done on behalf of families that look like mine and look like ours. And when I found out that our current representative, Congressman Cuellar, was voting with Donald Trump 70% of the time, I knew that those were not the values of people here in our district.
Whoa, hold on 1 minute.
Yes.
70% of the time
Yes.
he voted with Donald Trump?
Yes, and that included, you know, voting to fund the border wall. That included to, you know, defund women's clinics like Planned Parenthood. That included, I mean, having an A rating from the NRA, getting money from the Koch brothers. I mean, there was just so many issues where I knew these were not the values of South Texas, where, like, you know, any part of the district where you go to, whether it be here in San Antonio or Laredo or Roma or La Grulla or Zapata, our values are faith, hard work, and familia, right? Our families. And I just knew that nobody had been stepping up, I guess, at that time for almost 16 years. And I decided to run because I knew that there were so many people that knew that Congressman Cuellar stopped fighting for us a long time ago. And we decided to launch a grassroots campaign back last cycle in 2019. I say grassroots because our campaign doesn't take a single dime of corporate PAC money, so we are completely people-powered, and that allows me to, you know, have that independence to really fight for policies and center the people in our district first and foremost. When we first ran in 2020, we came just within 3 percentage points of taking on Congressman Cuellar. We came back to finish the job. We made history on March 1st in this election cycle by forcing the first runoff in the history of the congressional district. And now we are in the May 24th runoff election.
Right, yes. Before we get into the actual questions, we are all stunned and shocked by what happened Saturday in Buffalo, New York, at the Tops grocery store. Do you want to comment on that?
Yes, I mean, it's just so heartbreaking, and I mean, my condolences and prayers to all the families, the community that was affected. It's no coincidence that Black communities and communities of color all across the country are experiencing a spike in hate crimes, because we have seen, you know, these flames of division being stoked by the current political climate. And it just reminded me so much of what it felt like when we heard the news about the El Paso massacre that happened.
Wasn't it?
That's right. A few years ago, because when we see all this hate being spewed by, you know, domestic terrorists, that makes us feel like that could have easily been me and my family. I mean, there were people that just went to go buy groceries the same way that people in El Paso went to go buy groceries at Walmart. And I mean, this obviously won't be a one-size-fits-all solution, but we need to recognize that our current, political climate and our current laws aren't doing everything we can to protect our communities. And I just want to extend, like I said, my condolences to everyone that has been impacted, because, like I said, that easily could have been somebody from our family or ourselves.
And we do know that when the police confronted him, they said, please put down your weapon.
Right.
How many times has that happened to a black young kid? They say, please put down your weapon, if he killed that many people. So there's definitely something wrong out there that has to be corrected, I believe.
Yes.
But let's get closer to you now, okay? You're going to represent a very diverse congressional district. You have all kinds of different folks. Mm-hmm. You have blacks, Hispanics, whites. You have gays, you have straights, you have some in between.
Everything.
Everything. Mrs. Cisneros, how do you make or present policy that no one group really gets hurt?
Yes. So I think for me, that's why it's really important. So I know our conversation earlier before we started talking was that, especially with the new lines in the congressional district, and recognizing that I am a Latina that's from a border town, obviously coming to San Antonio and maybe, coming and being at for example, just a couple of days ago, I was at the Pan-African event that was here at the Carver Academy.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it's really important for me to be out there at events like that, especially in communities that aren't similar to, like I said, my neighborhood of Salsipuedes in Laredo, because we know there are different challenges that each one of our communities are facing, right? And like, for example, when I was there, I was listening to, black entrepreneurs talking about like what it is that they needed to make sure that they have the tools and skills and the programs for their businesses to be successful. We're talking about, also having funding set aside and like allowing our own communities to decide where that funding should be used, because obviously, like I said, as someone that's not black coming, it doesn't make sense for me to say, I think these are, one-size-fits-all policies. No, it's actually, I think, and part of the success of our campaign has been really this effort that we've been putting into sitting down, hearing people directly, what is it that you feel, your community needs? And I think one of the issues, for example, that we've been hearing here on the east side of San Antonio and the south side now as well is housing, right? Making sure that we are doing everything we can so that families aren't priced out of their homes that they've been living in, oftentimes for many generations, which isn't very much, at least right now, not a lot of a big issue in Laredo, but it's getting there, right? So there are different needs all throughout the community, and for me, it's just really important to sit down and hear from people directly, what is it that this campaign, not just what it can do for you, but also listening directly and make sure that people know they have a seat at the decision-making table and they can also shape the policy platform that we're running on.
You said to me one of the most important things I could hear from you, a seat at the decision-making table.
Yes.
When I was in Washington, D.C., a lot of these senators, because there's a big affirmative, well, you got to hire blacks, boom, 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 they'd put them out front,
right,
answering the phone. But in the back room where they're making decisions, no one was there. And we actually did an interview with Wall Street Journal back then, and they wrote an article on it. So what you're telling my viewers is that you will make sure that someone of our kind is in the decision making with you.
Yes, and that's something that is happening right now. I mean, our team, thankfully, we've been, with the grassroots donations we've been getting of an average contribution of $30, so it's just regular people like us, we've been able to staff up, and luckily we have a big team that really reflects all the different communities within our district, and all the communities that you mentioned in your question, they're reflected in our campaign.
Okay, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we want to talk a little more about financing and
Sounds
the
great.
problems with financing and what's done to our whole. When I was teaching at UTSA, I used to tell my students our cancer to our democracy is money.
Yes.
And I think it's coming true. But I want to discuss that a little while with
Sounds
you.
great.
Okay. We'll be right back with Miss Jessica Cisneros running for the 28th Congressional District here in San Antonio and Laredo.
Thank you.
2021 is complete. Good or bad, you made it through. The year of many firsts. It will not be easily forgotten. The Black Book Yearbook will help you capsule the year that was 2021. Own your part of history. Get your yearbook today at blacksinsanantonio.com. For the latest news and community activities, visit our companion site, blackvideonews.com, celebrating over 10 years of documenting the community.
Staying on top of your blood pressure is as simple as these 4 easy steps. Self-monitoring is power.
Can I get the now bar, please?
$1.
Have a good one.
Got it.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Let me get a now bar.
Sure.
$1. Appreciate you.
Got it.
COVID-19 has changed how we express our faith and gather to worship. We all want to get back to how we pray, how we congregate, how we lift our voices in praise. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to spreading the word without spreading concern. Before we can safely come together, we need the facts. As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it?
Is it safe?
Should I wait?
It's okay to have questions. Now get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
Welcome back to Discussions with the Writer Fred, right here at Black Network Video Network. And my special guest this evening is Miss Jessica Cisneros, who is running for Congress in the 28th Congressional District. As I mentioned earlier, she has just had, I was watching Meet the Press on Sunday, and they're doing the Senator Sanders.
Yes.
And he mentioned you. I said, look at San Antonio.
That's right.
Mentioned all over the country. So you're doing a great job.
I think so.
Yeah,
And that's
you're
great
good.
because we're amplifying the voices of South Texas. And I think
are.
especially, like I said, in the past 4 years under the Trump administration, you heard a lot about Texas and the border.
Just the border,
But now you're really getting to hear, from the voices, and that includes San Antonio and the rest of Texas 28.
And a young lady like you. That's fantastic.
Yes.
So the question I want to ask you, you made the statement that all your money is grassroots. And me and my wife were watching your commercial. I think you had one during the NBA playoffs. I said, where is she getting this money from?
All
Because
grassroots.
That's all grassroots
Yes.
money. Whoa, that's
Truly,
fantastic.
yes. No, it's been impressive and also validating because, I mean, last cycle I was a first-time candidate. I've been doing immigration advocacy and civil rights advocacy and doing attorney work. But I didn't know what it was to be a candidate, right? Like that's not something that like you necessarily go to school for. So I had to learn the ropes along the way. So it was a little scary when I was like, well, I'm just a regular person. Like I'm going to step up to be a candidate. How are these things going to be financed, right? Like, how am I going to pay my staff? How are we going to do all the voter outreach? But at the same time, I knew that our community was going to respond, that they were going to like the fact that our candidacy is not taking a single dime of corporate PAC money. And I think it sets an example for many other politicians and elected officials that this is what people want to see. And they're willing to invest, their hard-earned dollars and give $5, $10, $30, whatever it is that they can give. And to me, it's just really important to honor that trust and make sure that we're spending it wisely.
Yeah, right now, the pharmaceutical industry has more lobbyists
Yes.
than there are people on Capitol Hill with millions of dollars of money to make sure that they don't pass anything that is going to be beneficial to us.
Right.
And then also the NRA. I mean, they have a fantastic lobby on Capitol Hill. So do you think, I know Senator McCain was one of the biggest advocates for
campaign finance reform.
Campaign finance reform. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I really do think that if we're able to reform campaign finance laws, I mean, it's going to have a huge impact in the kind of representation that we are receiving, because you're absolutely correct. Like, there are so many lobbyists that are trying to, get more profits for the corporations that are employing them, instead of actually trying to figure out, like, well, what is the best thing we can do for someone, for example, that has health insurance. It's all profit margins, right? Instead of the insurance company being like, well, what does Professor Williams need to, like, make sure that he's healthy? Instead, they're trying to be like, well, we're not going to cover that because that's not, profitable for us. So that's why for me it was really important, because I, like many people in South Texas, when you take the health insurance industry as an example, I lost a family member to cancer because it was just too expensive to be able to, my aunt, to go to the doctor to get checked. And once she was able to do so, it was already too late. And we had to sell plates of food on the side of the highway, try to fundraise, crowd raise, everyone chipping in, but we weren't able to get her the treatment that she needed. She passed away, and then what do our families do after that? We fundraise again for funeral expenses, and it doesn't have to be this way.
And this is a real problem on the border, isn't it? Health insurance?
Yes. And I know here, I mean, I'm really glad that obviously San Antonio has a lot more medical infrastructure than along the border, because oftentimes we have to travel to San Antonio to get the care that we need. But I know here, for example, there's so many people that can't afford, let's say, their insulin, right? Or there's so many people that maybe do have Medicare, but it doesn't cover dental or vision or hearing. So there's so many gaps, right, as to what we can do to better improve our healthcare system in this country. And I think a great first step into making sure that progress happens, not just on that front, but so many other issues affecting families here in Texas 28 and across the country, is making sure we're addressing the issue of campaign finance.
Okay. If and when you're elected, what committee assignments are you looking to try to get?
I've been thinking about a few. I think one that makes complete sense, given the fact that we are on I-35, is the commerce one, and transportation, I think, is also really important, because we can address so many infrastructure issues that affect us all along I-35. And I do think the Committee on Homeland Security is also a really important one, because we are a border district. I'm an immigration and human rights attorney, and I think both the professional and personal experiences of knowing what the joys and challenges on the border are could very much help, positively shape immigration policy in Washington.
Okay. Now, along that line, the powers to be, Nancy Pelosi, they sent Clyburn down here, are backing Cuellar. If and when you win, how are you going to mend the fences with these people?
Well, the message that I've been sending leadership is the fact that I would be a much better partner working, right, alongside them to actually deliver on the campaign promises that Democrats made to Americans everywhere, right? They were winning campaign promises such as expanding our health insurance or Medicare to cover vision, dental, and hearing, that we were going to be fighting for, more affordable child care, which I know is an issue that affects everyone here in this district, that, either they have a loved one or they themselves are the parents of children that need affordable child care. that we're doing everything that we can in terms of continuing to invest in the education of people here in this district. That, I mean, there was just so many campaign promises that were made. And unfortunately, my opponent, Henry Cuellar, has been standing in the way of that. And he has been siding with Republicans on so many key pieces of legislature, including, for example, the PRO Act, which is a bipartisan piece of legislation that is a key labor legislation that would allow people to better organize in their workspaces. And he decided to side with the chamber, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Coke Industries to try to prevent workers from organizing in the country.
He came out against union?
He did, yes. And that's why we're proudly endorsed by the Texas AFL-CIO, because we've been centering working people around our campaign. But also it wasn't just that. It was the fact that he was standing in the way of the Build Back Better agenda that President Biden had ran on and won in 2020. So I'm telling leadership, you know, I would be a much better working partner with you all. And I'm excited. I mean, moving past the primary election when you said, you know, God willing, when we win, that I'm just here to represent people in this district. And I'm ready to work with whomever has the best interest of our community in mind. And again, the fact that I'm not taking a single dime of corporate PAC money allows me the independence to really focus on the challenges of working class people in our district.
Okay, one last question before you take a break. Texas has passed a very repressive voting rights bill. It's aimed against blacks, Hispanics, especially those two groups. And the Senate won't do anything about it. What will be your position if and when you're elected? What will be your position on voting rights?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I think we need to really pressure Congress to make sure that we are electing people that are actually going to be fighting for expansion of our voting rights. We actually don't need restrictions. We need to make it easier for people to get out there and vote. Right. One example of how this law is affecting us is that with this runoff election, early voting started today. It runs all the way to Friday. Usually we have a weekend of early vote, but under this repressive Texas bill, it's only during the weekdays. So there's so many working people that are working their Mondays to Fridays that aren't going to be able to vote. So it's just leading to the disenfranchisement of so many communities. Like you said, Black and Latinos usually are the ones that are most impacted by this, and this is not going to change unless Congress gets their act together. And I mean, the bills ended up passing through the House, but we also need to make sure that we're doing what we can to elect more senators that are going to be fighting for our voting rights. Texas, you know, pretty soon, Ted Cruz is going to be the next person that's going to be up for re-election. And there's our opportunity to make sure that we are electing people that are actually going to be championing the interest of working people here.
That brings me to another question. Once you're elected to the House, do you see the Senate or the governor in your future?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't even see Congress in my future until I was asked to run. Okay. So we'll see what ends up happening. But for now, like, I'm really just focused on doing what I can with this opportunity that is coming up. And I really hope that people grant me that opportunity to fight for them.
Okay, we're going to take another break. When we come back, I'm going to allow you to tell our viewers the mechanics of voting.
Absolutely.
Okay? We'll be right back with discussions with the writer Fred and Ms. Jessica Cisneros.
Veterans, when you're struggling, soon becomes later, becomes someday, becomes when. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Hello, this is Cornell with Frost Bank.
Hi there, this is Terry with Frost.
Good evening, this is Franklin. This is Robert with Frost.
Hello, this is Rosemary with Frost Bank.
Nothing to do this week? Don't miss another event. Go to blacksinsanantonio.com for our event calendar. The home of the largest business directory in San Antonio with an African American focus. Sign up today for our weekly e-blast and text message alerts. Help us make this a better community. Connect,
empower, grow.
One of the issues that you've raised, I think, is the length of time that a congressman should be in office. When you're elected, what will be your commitment to the people out there? How long will you serve? Even if it means going, I mean, I'm not saying you should stop being in politics. You may decide you want to run for Senate or president or whatever. But in that seat in the 28th district, how long do you think you should be there?
So we decided to sign a terms limit pledge that is going to basically say that we are going to go on to Congress and co-sponsor a bill that would set a term limit. It's about 6 to 8 years. So it would be about 3 or 4 times to get reelected, because in a lot of these offices, there's no term limits. And I think that we end up with sometimes representatives that because they've been in office for a very long time, they might lose touch with what's actually going on with people here in the district. So it's something that we probably co-sponsor, or we will, once we get there, co-sponsor, because I think, again, this is one of the issues that we have to address if we want a healthy democracy, because many folks stay there sometimes for decades. The reason why working class people don't decide to run against them is because, especially for congressional districts like ours, which is very big, it takes a lot of resources, and it ends up with people that have the means to be able to run these $1 million campaigns. Those are the only ones that decide to step up and run, because other people don't have the finances. For us, like, it was, we're really thankful for the people that believe in our grassroots movement, because we've been able to get there with folks chipping in $30. But it's really difficult, right? Because I myself, for example, don't count with a lot of money myself. My parents started off as farm workers in this country, right? So I don't have a wealthy network to be able to dig into. But that's why it's really important to elect more working class champions that are taking only grassroots money and that are, committing to not stay there for decades and decades and decades, because I think that also, leads to less progress being made on a lot of issues.
Yeah. And you are taking on what's called the power of incumbency.
Yes.
Because the incumbent has such a tremendous advantage. I think it's almost like 98% of the time the incumbent will be reelected.
Yes.
But you're really putting up a fight to challenge that.
Yeah, and it's not just me, right? It's we. Like, there's just so many people that are behind this campaign and just allowing us to make sure that we're speaking up, and I really hope folks also speak up at the ballot box as well.
Okay. Why don't you tell our viewers the mechanics of this voting?
Absolutely. So I mentioned early voting started today. It's going to be from Monday the 16th until the 20th, which is Friday. Make sure that you check within your county, where your polling places are. And you can go vote and during early vote anywhere in your county on election day. It really depends on what your county's rules are, but most counties you have to go at your precinct. But for example, Bexar County, you can go, wherever it is that you need to go vote. I recommend people check our website. It's jessicacisneros.com. My last name is Cisneros. And we have a voting page there, both in English and Spanish, because we want to make sure we, provide the information necessary for all the people within our district. And you can find, make sure that you check if your registration is still current, that you have the identification necessary, all that information, where to go vote, what the times are, all of that information is on our website, which is jessicacisneros.com.
Okay. Well, Ms. Cisneros,
Thank
attorney,
you so much.
Would you like to give our viewers a closing comments?
Absolutely. Yes. I really hope that after listening and, doing a little bit more research, because it's really important to know who's on the ballot and why they're on the ballot, that we're able to earn your support. We came very, very close to defeating Congressman Cuellar last cycle. It was just 3 percentage points. During the March 1st primary, we made history by forcing this historic runoff, and now it's time to finish the job. The reason why I decided to run is because I know that our community deserves a lot more investment than what it's currently receiving. And I know the talent and potential that is in this district. When you give us the skills and the resources, we always punch above our weight. And I think our campaign is a really good reflection of that. So I really hope that we earn your support. We're fighting for, making sure that we have expanded health care through Medicare for all, that we're fighting for a $15 minimum wage, that we're fighting for our reproductive freedoms, that we're fighting for representation that is actually going to be accountable for all of us. So I really hope to earn y'all's support. As I mentioned, early voting is today until Friday, and then the election is May 24th, which is actually my 29th birthday.
Oh, wow.
So we have a lot to celebrate that
Happy
day.
birthday.
So I really hope we are able to celebrate together, because it's going to be the beginning of, I think, a wonderful working relationship between our office and so many people here in Texas 28th.
Oh, okay. Well, Mrs. Cisneros, thank you for coming to visit with Discussion with the Writer Fred and all my viewers.
Thank you.
So, if you don't do anything else, you have to vote. Because if you don't vote, you don't count. This is Discussions with the Writer Fred special edition telling our story our way.